The night before she left, we had dinner at a quiet place downtown. One of those spots we used to call ours. Back when we still used words like that. She ordered something she didn't eat, picked at her salad like it was a puzzle, smiled without using her eyes. I watched her across the candlelit table, trying to remember the last time I really heard her laugh. Not the polite kind she gave my jokes lately, but the unfiltered, head-thrown-back kind that used to make everyone else in the room turn and look. It had been a while. She told me she was excited, that the girls had planned something low-key but fun. She emphasized that twice. Low-key. Her voice was too careful, too rehearsed, like someone trying to sell you something they don't believe in. I nodded, drank my wine, pretended not to notice the way she kept checking her phone under the table. That night, in bed, she lay next to me stiff as a board, scrolling through something with the screen dimmed all the way down. I didn't ask what. I didn't want to know. Maybe some part of me already did. The next morning, I woke up to an empty side of the bed and a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. Love you. Be good while I'm gone. Nothing else. Not even a heart or a smiley face like she used to draw. Just ink on paper, dry and lifeless. I told myself to stop overthinking. That it was just nerves. That she deserved the celebration. That I trusted her. I went about my weekend as if I wasn't unraveling inside. I cooked, I read, I even started writing the vows I thought I'd say in a few weeks. The first line was about how she saved me. The irony would land like a punch to the gut days later. Sunday evening rolled in like a tide full of warning. Her friend Carla called me. By accident, I think. Or maybe it was deliberate. Either way, I picked up and heard noise. Loud music. Shouting. Laughter that was just a little too wild. And then her voice. Not angry. Not upset. Just different. Like someone I didn't recognize. She was saying something about a dare. A dancer. Someone's lap. Someone else's. Then another voice. Male, unfamiliar, too close. The call cut. I sat there, phone in hand, not breathing. An hour later, a video came through from an unknown number. No words, just a shaky clip of a hotel room. The angle was terrible, but I could see enough. Her dress, her hands. Two men. One clearly a performer, the other a guest I didn't recognize, laughing close, too close. She was right there in the middle. Drunk, maybe, but not unwilling. She wasn't pulling away. She wasn't confused. She was smiling. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I packed my bags in silence. Everything I had brought to her apartment for the move-in, the shirts in the closet, the books on the shelf, the watch she got me for our anniversary. I folded it all back into the suitcase with mechanical precision. I left the ring box on the kitchen table. Closed. Unopened. Heavy in ways no gold ever should be. Then I walked out. Locked the door behind me. No note. No message.
No goodbye.
Only silence that I stayed in a small rented flat on the edge of the city that night. The kind of place meant for transients. Bare walls, no photographs. A mattress that creaked when you looked at it wrong. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed with the light off, letting the hours pass like cars on a distant highway. At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up. Her name. No message. Just a call. I stared at it until it stopped. Another call came at 2:32, then again at 3:04, each one ringing longer than the last. I didn't answer. What was she going to say? That she was drunk? That it didn't mean anything? That she thought it was harmless? By noon the next day, my phone was a war zone. Texts from her, her friends, even her sister, all playing the same tune. It got out of hand. She didn't mean to hurt you. You should talk to her before making any decisions. Decisions? That word felt like a joke. The decision was made the moment I watched her touch another man like I didn't exist. And yet, a part of me still needed to see her. Not to hear excuses. I didn't want apologies. I wanted truth. Raw. Ugly. Cold, if that's what it had to be. I needed her to look me in the eye and confirm what I'd already seen with my own. So I messaged her. Meet me. 1 hour. The cafe on 5th. Come alone. I got there early. Sat in the corner where I could watch the door. She arrived 10 minutes late. Sunglasses on. Hair tied up like she was trying to disappear. She walked over. Unsure. Cautious. Like I was something she didn't recognize anymore. When she sat down, she didn't speak. She didn't take off her sunglasses. I waited. Then I said, "So, did you have fun?" She flinched. Not dramatically, just a small twitch in the corner of her mouth. I don't know what you saw, she began, like that would help. But it wasn't what it looked like. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how predictable it was. That's a terrible opener, I said. Try again. She hesitated. It was stupid. We drank too much. The girls dared me. It got out of hand. And the other guy? The one who wasn't hired to dance. She went quiet. I didn't sleep with anyone, she said quickly. Too quickly. It wasn't like that.
No.
I leaned forward. So what was it like? Tell me. Paint the picture for me, since my version clearly isn't accurate. She pulled off her sunglasses finally, and I saw it. Emptiness. Not sorrow. Not shame. Just inconvenience. Like she was here out of obligation. Not remorse. I didn't think you'd find out. And there it was. Not, I didn't mean to, or I regret it. Just the truth, sharp and careless. I sat back, nodded slowly. You didn't think I'd find out, I repeated. That's the part you regret. Silence stretched between us. The cafe noise around us faded into white. She looked away first. I stood up. You know, I said quietly, I was writing my vows that weekend. She blinked, caught off guard. What? I had this whole line about how I'd never felt safer than when I was with you. Then I walked out, leaving her at that table with nothing but her cold coffee and all the weight of what she'd done that I didn't go back to my old apartment. The one we had picked together, where every corner held a trace of her. Her coat still hanging behind the door, her handwriting on the calendar by the fridge, notes like, wedding tasting 3 p.m. and call florist. I couldn't bear it. Instead, I drove for hours. No direction, just motion. By nightfall, I found myself parked near a gas station in a town I couldn't name. I sat in the car, engine off, watching the neon signs flicker, the quiet hum of a vending machine broken only by the occasional gust of wind. My thoughts weren't calm. They circled like crows. I wasn't thinking about the wedding we'd already paid for, or the venue that had taken 9 months to book. I was thinking about that one sentence. I didn't think you'd find out. That was it. That was the core of everything. Not guilt, not love, just calculation. A gamble that she thought she could win. The texts didn't stop. Not even for a night. Her friends had become a chorus of damage control. Carla messaged, she's devastated. She made a mistake, but it didn't mean anything. Another wrote, it's not fair to throw everything away over one night. She's still your person. Still my person. People don't understand. They think betrayal is a single act. Flashpoint, one bad choice, but they miss the rot underneath. The decisions before the decision, the slow unspooling of respect, of honesty, of love itself. This wasn't just one night. This was everything that came before it, unspoken and ignored. On the third day, she showed up. I didn't tell her where I was. She must have guessed. Or maybe one of her friends told her. She found me at the motel in the parking lot, her car skidding into a spot like it was urgent. She climbed out fast, without makeup, hair in a knot, wearing one of my old sweaters. As if that would mean something now. She didn't knock. She just opened the door to my room and stood there, framed in the yellow light from the hallway. You blocked me, she said. I had no other way. I didn't block you, I replied without looking up. I just stopped responding. She stepped inside, shut the door behind her. You don't understand. That night, I wasn't myself. I laughed under my breath. You seemed pretty comfortable with yourself in that video. She looked hurt by that, but not enough. It wasn't real. I was drunk. I was trying to impress them. You were trying to impress your friends, I repeated. Not me. Not the person you promised a life to. Her eyes welled, but the tears didn't fall, and I wondered if they ever would. I messed up, she whispered. I know that, but we've been through too much to let it all go because of something I didn't even mean. I stood slowly, calm now in a way that terrified even me. Let me ask you something, I said. If I had done the same thing at my bachelor party, danced with a woman, let her sit on my lap, kissed her neck while someone filmed it, would you still be marrying me? Her silence was an answer. I stepped closer, not to intimidate but to see her, really see her. You didn't just betray me, I said. You betrayed the idea of us. You made me look like a fool before we even stood at the altar. And the worst part? You're not even sorry for the right reasons. Finally, she said it. The sentence she'd been holding back. I didn't want to lose you. Not, I didn't want to hurt you. Not, I love you. Just fear. Fear of consequence. Fear of the aftermath. That's the difference between us, I said. You were afraid of losing something. I was afraid of hurting someone. She reached for my hand then, desperate, pulled away, not with anger, not with spite, with finality. Go home, I told her. And when she left, I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. I just sat down and began, slowly, to feel the weight of my own silence fill the room like smoke. The following morning, I found myself staring into a motel mirror, studying a face I barely recognized. The stubble had thickened, dark circles under my eyes painted in like war marks. There was no fire in my expression, just a dullness, a quiet vacancy. I didn't go to work. I didn't answer the calls from my mother, who just assumed I was busy with wedding plans. I didn't open the message from her father that simply read, I heard. If you want to talk, I'm here. I couldn't talk. Not yet. I needed to do something physical, something real. So I drove back into the city. Not to her place. Not to mine. I went to the storage unit where we'd kept the things we said we'd figure out later. Winter coats, old photo albums, random boxes labeled in messy marker like kitchen, and cords, keep. I opened them one by one, sifting through the evidence of what we were building. Tangible proof of a life imagined. I found the scrapbook she made me after our first year together. Concert tickets. A napkin with a doodle. A photo of us on a Ferris wheel, mid-laugh, wind in her hair. I stared at that photo for a long time. I remembered that day. I remembered how hard it rained that morning. How we almost didn't go. I remembered the way she begged the operator to let us ride twice and how she screamed just to make me laugh. But the woman in the photo wasn't the same person who looked me in the eye days ago and said, I didn't think you'd find out. So I tore the photo in half. Not out of rage. Out of necessity. It was a strange thing. Mourning someone who was still alive. Later that day, she called again. This time, I answered. Her voice was different now. Flat. Exhausted. I just want to talk. You've done enough talking, I said. She didn't argue. For once. Then she said, Do you really think I'm a monster? That made me pause. No, I said honestly. I think you're someone who didn't want to disappoint your friends more than you wanted to protect me. I think you got caught up in your own reflection and forgot who was standing beside you. Silence. Then, I loved you. I let that hang for a moment before answering. You loved the way I loved you. Another silence. Heavier. I keep thinking, she said. If I had just said no. If I had just walked away from that dare. But you didn't. I cut in. And that's what I have to live with. She didn't cry. I think part of her wanted to. Maybe she thought that would fix something. But the tears never came. Then she asked the question I was waiting for. Is there any chance? I didn't answer right away. Because part of me somewhere deep wanted to say yes. Not because I forgave her. But because I missed her. Because starting over felt like standing at the edge of a cliff with no parachute. Because even betrayal doesn't erase every memory. But then I remembered the video. The call. Her face. The way she never said sorry until the fallout began. No, I said finally. There's not. She whispered something then. I think it was okay. Or maybe just a breath. We didn't hang up. Not immediately. We just sat there, each listening to the other breathe. Like ghosts on opposite sides of a closed door. Then the line went dead. A week passed. I didn't measure it in days, but in fragments. The sound of passing trains outside the motel window. The coffee that tasted like burnt paper. The moment I saw her wedding dress hanging in the corner of her Instagram story. A post she hadn't deleted yet. It was still tagged. The one. I had the ring in my pocket for 2 weeks before that night. I used to pull it out when I needed clarity, like it would answer the question I was too afraid to ask. Now, it sat in the glove box of my car. Quiet, unspoken for, not even pawned. Just abandoned, like the version of me who thought love alone could hold everything together. Then came the message from her mother. She's not okay. I know it's not your job, but I thought you should know. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. I almost replied. But what could I say? That I was sorry she hurt herself by hurting me? That I still cared? That I didn't? Instead, I drove. Aimlessly again. It was becoming a habit, this wandering. I pulled into an empty parking lot behind a closed bookstore and just sat there, headlights off, engine humming like a lullaby. I wasn't running from her anymore. I was running from who I used to be when I believed her. Around midnight, the notifications started coming in from mutual friends. Someone, probably her, had posted a photo. Not of us. Of her and her friends. The caption read, "We all make mistakes. It's how we rise from them that matters." The comments were full of sympathy. "You're so strong. Everyone deserves a second chance. You'll come out better from this." I didn't feel rage. I felt something worse, disgust. Not at her. At the theater of it. The curated redemption arc. The way the story was already being rewritten, polished, reframed. No one had seen the video. No one had watched her wrap her arms around another man while my name still hung on her finger. And maybe they didn't need to. That wasn't the point. The point was, she was moving on. Publicly. Elegantly. Like someone learning how to spin a story into something palatable. I went back to the flat the next morning. Not hers, not mine, the borrowed in-between. I sat at the tiny table by the window and made a list. Not a list of reasons to leave. I didn't need one. A list of what came next. Call the venue. Cancel the date. Inform the guests. Keep it simple.
No explanations.
Sell the ring. Return the suit. Write the email to her family. Kind but final. Block the numbers. Breathe. Felt mechanical. But sometimes healing isn't a firestorm. Sometimes it's paperwork. And in the quiet after the list, I realized something. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had forced me to grow. To see the parts of myself I'd ignored, the dependency, the silence I let slide, the compromises I made when I should have spoken. She hadn't broken me. She'd exposed me. And maybe that was its own kind of gift, cruel as it was. I folded the list. Put it in my wallet. Not to forget. To remember where this version of me began. 3 days after the list was made. I stood outside the venue. It wasn't on purpose. I was driving past, and something in me said turn. The gates were open, probably for another couple's rehearsal. I pulled in, parked near the edge of the lot, far enough not to be seen, but close enough to watch. The garden looked exactly as it had when we first toured it. Perfectly trimmed hedges, lanterns hanging from the trees, the little stone path where we were supposed to walk hand in hand as husband and wife. I remembered how she gasped when she saw the ivy-covered arch. How she said, "It looks like something out of a dream." But that dream belonged to someone else now. I watched for a while, long enough to see a new couple walking the grounds with a planner, pointing at things, laughing. They held hands. They had no idea how close they were standing to a wreckage. I left without going inside. That night, I started packing everything that remained of us. The gifts we hadn't opened yet. The letters. The framed photo her sister had taken when we got engaged. Us on the pier, her jumping into my arms, both of us soaked in sunlight. I'd looked at that photo for weeks, trying to decide if it was worth keeping. In the end, I put it in the bin. I didn't need proof of who I was with her. I needed room for who I was without her. That's when the knock came. It was late, too late for visitors. I opened the door slowly, expecting maybe the landlord or a neighbor with a complaint. But it was her.
No makeup. No filter.
Just her. In a hoodie and jeans, eyes raw from crying or lack of sleep or both. "I know you don't want to see me," she said, "but I couldn't leave it like this." I didn't say anything. I didn't move. "I've lost everyone," she continued. "My friends are split down the middle. My family won't stop asking questions. I haven't been able to sleep since." "Don't do that," I interrupted. "Don't try to make me feel bad for the consequences of your actions." Her mouth opened, closed again. She looked like she'd rehearsed something. I could see it behind her eyes, the speech she thought would fix everything. The one that worked in her mind, but didn't stand a chance in the real world. "I thought if I explained," she tried again. "If I told you the whole story, you'd understand." "I understand enough." Silence stretched between us. "I didn't sleep with them," she said quietly. "That's not the victory you think it is," I replied. She flinched, then nodded. "I guess I just wanted to feel free." Like I wasn't about to disappear into marriage and responsibility and routine. I wanted one last night to be wild. I didn't think. No. I cut in, voice firmer now. You didn't. And I was already free too. But I didn't throw away your trust to enjoy mine. She looked at me, really looked. For once, there was no defense in her expression. Just the hollow realization that she had reached the end of the road, and I wasn't waiting. I came to say I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I said. Do you believe me? Yes, I answered. But that doesn't change what you did. She stood there, shaking slightly, like her body hadn't caught up with her mind yet. I won't bother you again, she said. I know, I repeated. And just like that, she turned and walked away. I didn't close the door immediately. I watched her disappear down the hallway, steps small, slow, uncertain. Then I shut the door, turned off the light, and stood in the quiet. It didn't feel like closure. Felt like something better. Like peace. I started running again. Not for fitness. For control. For rhythm. For the feeling of pounding pavement underfoot when everything else felt slippery and unsteady. Each step a quiet rebellion against chaos. The city had changed in the weeks since it happened. Or maybe I just saw it differently now. Stripped of illusion, sobered. The first time I ran past the restaurant where we had our engagement dinner, I slowed to a walk. Not because of nostalgia, but because I half expected to see her sitting at our old table, laughing like nothing happened. But the chairs were empty, the window dark. Even the ghosts had moved on. That was the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't end with the decision to walk away. That's just the start. The real work comes in the days that follow, when you wake up and reach for someone who isn't there. When you make 2 cups of coffee by habit. When you go to text them because you saw something they'd love, and you remember, that part of you doesn't have a destination anymore. Around week 3, a mutual friend invited me to a small dinner party. I almost didn't go. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want the how are you holding up looks. But staying locked away in that in-between space wasn't healing me. It was preserving the wound like a museum exhibit. So I went. The apartment was warm, full of noise and smells and people I hadn't seen in months. Some of them knew. Some didn't. They greeted me kindly, cautiously, like someone recovering from surgery. I hated it for the first hour. Then, something shifted. Someone told a terrible joke and I laughed. Actually laughed. And it felt strange in my chest, like using a muscle I'd forgotten was there. Later in the evening, a woman I'd never met asked me, casually, "So, what do you do when you're not haunting dinner parties?" Her tone wasn't flirtatious, just disarming, natural. And I surprised myself by answering. We talked about music, about cities we both wanted to escape to, about why she quit social media and what it felt like to live without the echo chamber. It wasn't a spark. It wasn't a sign. It was a conversation. And I hadn't had one of those in a long time without checking my phone, wondering where she was. When I left that night, I didn't take anyone's number. I didn't make promises. But I walked back to my car with the smallest ember of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Possibility. That night, I wrote a letter I never sent. It was to her. The one who broke me. Not to accuse. Not to ask why. Just to speak without interruption. I wrote, "You could have told me. You could have said you were scared. You could have said you weren't ready. I would have listened. I would have stayed. But you chose performance over honesty. Spectacle over love. And now here we are. 2 strangers who almost became a story. I folded it. Put it in the drawer with the list. Not to keep. To let go. 2 months to the day after I left her, I received a letter. Not a message. Not a call. A real letter, handwritten like something out of another time. The envelope was soft, cream-colored. The handwriting unmistakably hers. Delicate, deliberate. My name on the front. Just that. Nothing else. I held it for a long time before opening it. Not because I was afraid of what was inside, but because part of me was surprised it existed at all. The letter was 5 pages long. Front and back. Neatly written. No crossed-out words. No mistakes. She wrote about the silence. The weight of it. How the apartment felt like a museum now. Every object a reminder of what she had traded for one night of applause. She didn't defend herself this time. She didn't plead. There was no pitch, no manipulation. Just Honesty, finally, when it was too late to change anything. She admitted that it hadn't been spontaneous, that she'd entertained the attention because it made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in months. She said she'd confused adrenaline for affection, that she had let the moment carry her away because it was easier than sitting in the stillness of commitment. And then she said something that landed like a stone. I didn't know how to be loved the way you loved me. It scared me. It made me feel like I had something to lose, and I hated that feeling more than I realized. That was the first time she ever named it, her fear of depth. Her instinct to run from anything too quiet, too kind, too real. The rest of the letter was quieter. Memories, regrets, questions she knew I wouldn't answer. At the end, she said, I won't contact you again after this. I just needed to say it once, without filters, without anyone else's voice in my head. You were good to me. I hope you find someone who knows what to do with that. I folded the letter, didn't cry, didn't rage, just sat with it. Because the thing is, when someone tells you the truth after the damage is done, it doesn't undo the damage. But it does explain the shape of the wreckage. I walked to the park later that day. Same route we used to take on Sundays. Families were out. A boy flew a kite so high it disappeared into the clouds. I sat on a bench and watched strangers laugh, argue, hold hands, be messy and human. And it occurred to me, I hadn't thought about her face in days. Not her voice. Not the way she moved. The absence had stopped hurting. It had simply become space. Space for something else. That's when I saw my old friend Mark walking toward me. He hadn't known. Last we spoke, he was helping me plan the reception playlist. His face lit up in recognition, then narrowed with confusion when he got closer. Hey, he said. Man, where've you been? Everything okay with the wedding? I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I told someone the truth without rehearsing it. No wedding, I said. He blinked. What happened? I thought about how to answer. About the video, the silence, the note, the motel, the long drive, the letter. Then I said, she wasn't ready to be loved. Mark didn't push. He just nodded. You want to grab a beer? I smiled. Yeah. Ido. And just like that, a new thread pulled itself into place. Not healing all at once, but starting to. The future, for the first time, felt like mine again. There was a moment, a single moment that marked the true turning point, though I didn't recognize it at the time. I was at a bookstore, not looking for anything, just wandering. The kind of place that smells like dust and paper, like memory. A quiet refuge. I picked up a novel I'd read years ago, the spine now soft from age. Inside, someone had written a note in pencil. This is where I remembered who I was. I didn't need context. That single sentence hit like a pulse. I stood there for a long time, book open, fingers frozen, the world shrinking down to that line. Because that's what betrayal does. Isn't it? It doesn't just hurt. It steals pieces of you, your certainty, your instincts, your reflection. And little by little, you forget how to see yourself without someone else's shadow cast over you. I bought the book. That night, I went through my phone. Not to check on her, but to clean house. Deleted conversations. Archived old photos. I found the wedding playlist still saved. Hundreds of songs. Each one tied to a memory, promise, a lie. I deleted it. It didn't feel like erasing. It felt like pruning a tree that had grown wild and wrong, making space for healthier things. A few days later, I was at a local cafe, one I hadn't been to in years. I brought the book with me, the same one, sat outside, let the sun find my face. And while I was reading, someone sat across from me. She was a stranger. Her coffee spilled slightly as she sat, and she laughed, apologizing. We exchanged a few words, small talk, casual. Nothing charged, nothing heavy. But she asked what I was reading, and I told her. She smiled. That's one of my favorites. And then she said something I didn't expect. Isn't it wild how someone else's words can hold your story before you even live it? I looked at her for a long moment, not because I thought it meant something romantic, but because it was the first time I'd felt a moment like that without comparing it to what came before. Later, when I walked home, I didn't text anyone about it. I didn't write it down. I just held it. It wasn't about her, the one who broke me. It wasn't about forgetting her either. It was about returning to myself, layer by layer, word by word, without rush. I passed by the building where we once talked about moving in together. The for rent sign still hung in the window. I didn't flinch. I didn't look twice. And that's when I knew. Healing had arrived not as a grand declaration, but in the quiet certainty that I no longer needed her story to finish writing mine. The pain was still there, but it had changed shape. No longer a blade. Just a scar. It came unexpectedly, as these things often do, not with closure but with a choice. 3 months after I left, I received an invitation to a mutual friend's wedding. A real one this time. No canceled plans. No betrayal humming beneath the surface. Just love, in its raw and vulnerable state, asking me to witness. I almost didn't go. The idea of sitting through vows, hearing two people speak the same promises I once wrote and never delivered, it felt dangerous, like walking barefoot across a broken floor. But I went. Not for her. Not even for them. For me. I sat near the back. Quiet, unobtrusive. The ceremony was simple, elegant. The couple spoke softly, stumbled over their words, laughed mid-vow, and something in me shifted, not into sorrow, but gratitude. Because I no longer envied what they had. I respected it. There was a time when I would have looked at two people in love and felt the sting of what I'd lost. But not now. Now I saw it differently. Not as a reminder of failure, but as proof that love, real love, still exists. It was never about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone honest. After the ceremony, while people clinked glasses and danced, I stepped outside onto the venue balcony. The night was cool, the sky wide and silent. I looked out over the trees and let the stillness fill me. That's when my phone buzzed. A single message, from a number I hadn't deleted, but muted. Her name at the top.
No preview.
Just a bubble waiting. I opened it. I heard you were there tonight. I'm glad you're okay. That's all. I stared at it.
No anger.
No heat. No impulse to respond. Because I had no questions left. She had taken what she needed from our story. And now, finally, I had taken what I needed too. Not vengeance. Not explanation. Freedom. So I left the message unread. Turned off the screen. And stepped back into the room filled with laughter, music, the messy noise of people still believing in each other. I didn't dance. Not yet. But I stayed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the man who'd been broken. I felt like the man who had rebuilt. Quietly. Fully. Honestly. And that was enough.